Hey guys, it's Micah from Sapulpa Times. Welcome to a special edition of the Timeloop. I'm going to dedicate the bulk of this episode to the serious incident that happened over at Jefferson Heights yesterday. And I just want to talk a little bit. This is going to be a little more of a commentary. We'll give some news updates and let you guys know what happened yesterday that you're probably already aware of. If you're not, we'll fill you in on the details. But we've got some commentary that we want to do to kind of talk about the situation that's happening and what has happened in the past, and hopefully maybe what we can do about it to prevent something like this happening in the future. So, right about now, the other schools in the area, some in the country, depending on when they start school, they would be celebrating an event what's called 100 Days at School, and typically most of those schools will just have the students dress up as centenarians, and they'll spend the day hobbling down the hallways with their canes and their walkers, and just generally having a great time and just looking forward to that time where they get to graduate and go from recess to retirement. And unfortunately, that is not what was happening right now at Sapulpa Public Schools. Jefferson Heights had a report of a gun incident that happened yesterday. So if you haven't heard yet, I'll get you caught up on the details as we have them now. So according to a statement that the school released yesterday when they called the parents, there was a student that had brought a gun in his backpack, and that it was later found out by another student, and they told the authorities. The authorities went and took the gun, and the school system said that that person is being dealt with according to school policy. But a little bit further investigation into this uncovers some concerns about some things, and also points to what is a very disturbing trend that we're seeing. So, if you're not already aware, Sapulpa Public Schools has had, this will be their third gun-related incident that happened that affected the school. Not all of them happened on campus, but it's a third related incident so far this school year that affected the school. So let's do a quick recap of those in case you're not already aware. We'll start with the one that happened at the Sapulpa High School, or near the Sapulpa High School, I should say, right outside of the football stadium. A lot of you guys will remember this one. It was kind of alarming because it was the only time that a shooting actually happened. And what it was is a juvenile was walking the street and reportedly, according to the story that we got, met up with another juvenile who asked their name, and that person then pulled out a gun, shot around into the sidewalk, and then fled the scene. And that was the first incident that we happened, and it happened right after school hours, so there was no need for a lockdown or anything like that. But school authorities, again, school resource officers took care of the situation, and it was dealt with. And the person, they believe they identified the suspect as what we were told. So and then that was in September. And then in December, some of you guys might remember a situation that happened over at Holmes Park Elementary where a student brought a gun in their backpack to Holmes Park, and it was discovered by the authorities when another student told the authorities about it. And then that person again was dealt with by the authorities. The difference here is that this one was, this actually happened on Halloween, and the school didn't find out about it until almost a month later. And then, of course, the most recent one was yesterday. You guys have probably already heard about this now, and I'll just mentioned it. The one that happened at Jefferson Heights Elementary. And a student was again caught with a gun in the backpack. And so the first thing that comes to mind on this situation, whenever you hear about this, is where are the parents that are involved in these kids' lives? Or if they have parents, where are the parents that are involved in these kids' lives? And in every case, the juvenile in question is obviously not old enough to own a gun. Um, and in two of the incidents, the students are elementary age children believed to have been 10 years old or younger. And so it really, really begs the question here, where are the parents involved in this situation? And I think back, so I wasn't carrying a gun around at this age, I know that, but I did when I was younger. my parents had a gun that I got to use. I went on a few deer hunting trips with my dad. And so I had a gun, but it was a rifle. And when I did not have that gun, my dad had it locked away in his safe. And so the most alarming thing that comes to mind here is not just the fact that a child was able to get a gun to their backpack to school, but that the parents who owned the gun allowed their child to get the gun without their knowledge. And it begs the question, are the parents being held responsible or accountable for this sort of thing? We don't actually know. I mean, I suppose it's possible that a parent could be charged with neglect if something awful were to happen. Thankfully, there's not been a real tragedy of sorts yet, but I mean, it's alarming. And so, in the Holmes Park incident, Sapulpa police did confirm that the gun belonged to the child's mother. And so that's one situation. And then in that same case, what most parents don't realize, or and as I just mentioned, or they've forgotten, is that the student actually brought the gun on Halloween Day, reportedly showed it to several other students, and then it was not brought up to the authorities until almost a month later. And so, in a similar situation is what happened at Jefferson Heights, which was the child had the gun at the school the day before. This is how it appeared according to the statement that we got from the school. Had it in their backpack at the school the day before. They showed it to some people. The next day, brought it again, and that's when the authorities recovered the gun. That's when the authorities were notified about it. And so, in both of those incidences, you have a case where, first of all, parents or somebody that owned a gun wasn't keeping up with their gun. Then you have students that knew about it, that found it, that saw it, and did not tell authorities immediately. In one of those cases, it was almost a month later. And so that really kind of goes back to the parents, in my opinion, also, is parents, you need to be really having careful conversations and very stern, instructive conversations with your students about if something like this happens and you see something like this, even if it's not real, if it's a toy um, or a knife or something else, it doesn't have to be a gun. But the authorities need to be notified about this. And parents, if you're not having this conversation with your children, you really should be. Um, the adults who own these guns are obviously being not being responsible with them, or they're being held accountable. We're not really being told. That kind of leads me to my second point in this, which is the follow up that we're getting from the schools themselves is lacking. And so, for example, there was never any mention of the incident near the high school after it happened. Now, I understand that it didn't actually happen on school grounds, but it was enough to cause some alarm by the school. I mean, if it had not happened, if it had been during school hours, it undoubtedly would have caused the lockdown. Um, but we didn't hear anything else about it until after the fact. In fact, the only update that we got after that said that neither the juvenile who fired the shot nor the victim in that case were actual students at the school. And we didn't get that from the school themselves. We got that from the Sapulpa Police Department. And so school systems of the category tend to do this pretty regularly. They don't make it a habit to hand out too much information. And generally, that's because you're dealing with students. And so it's understandable. But the problem being is that when we do hear about these things, they tend to be, well, they tend to raise more questions than answers. And in the case of Jefferson Heights, that's what's happened here. So the woman who claims to be the mother of the child who told the authorities about the gun at Jefferson Heights actually left us comment on the story on KJRH on Facebook. And I highlighted a couple areas here. She said the kid most definitely did make threats in the bathroom to a group of students, and that's what led my son to report it. Now, of course, that child is terrified to go back to school because he's being labeled a snitch. And then this was kind of surprising. After authorities took the gun, they allowed the child to go back to class. And so uh, I will wait for the school to kind of come forward on what happened there. I don't know if they were just like, well, what do we do with them? Uh, I mean, allowing your child to go back to class after they brought a gun to school is a pretty bold move. Um, and then she finishes by saying the parents need to do better and be held accountable, which in this particular case especially, I mean, after the fact that we've had three of these situations happen that have involved the school in some capacity, I would have to say that needs to be a rallying cry for all the other parents and concerned citizens of the area. So yeah, if you got parents, you have guns, and I completely understand it is your right to have a gun, as long as you're holding it legally. But you need to know at all times where that firearm is, and it should not ever be in your child's possession without you being right there with them. Um, so yeah, holding the parents accountable. That's not something we've really heard much about. We haven't seen much about it yet. We haven't heard from the schools or from the police departments whether or not the parents in any of these incidents were held accountable because their children illegally had firearms. We don't really know much about what the district's policy is, according to this, when they're being disciplined according to policy. I know that that can be different depending on the situation. So I think they take it by case basis. But regardless, I just want to return to the picture that we started the show with, which was this one, which is it's a really cute, sweet picture, and it's a really nice reminder of what these kids should be experiencing during this time at school, and not what could become a tragedy if things are not handled better by the adults in the homes of the children here. And ultimately, what we want is for this picture right here to become the reality for the students at Sapulpa Public Schools, that they will actually live to be centenarians, be 100 years old, and enjoy that retirement. And that hopefully we don't have a tragedy at Sapulpa Public Schools. So, parents, you need to do better. So, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again on Monday where we talk about all things happening in the town that we love. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye bye.